Republican hopefuls who think they can topple President Trump's staggering lead with the party faithful will gather tonight at the Reagan Library to square off again and debate their vision of the future. Good luck. But with President Trump not attending or paying much attention to the event, is it even worth our time watching it?
And Joe Biden made history yesterday, becoming the first sitting president to join striking auto workers on the picket line in Michigan. For an 80-year-old president facing concerns about his terrible poll numbers, the public's perception about his ability to lead, and an economy failing to inflation, is this trip another attempt that is too little, too late to hold on to the White House?
A war of words between Howard Stern and President Trump as the shock jock reacts to being called a, quote, broken weirdo by 45. That story and more as American Sunrise starts right now. We've got your back as you start your day.
Articulating what the majority of Americans feel today, and I really appreciate that you do.
Y'all tell the truth.
You guys are our voice.
We watch every morning while getting ready for work.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Dr. Gina. So good to be with you, bright and shiny this morning. And we got someone else bright and shiny, and that is our own David Brody. He's holding down the fort out in Washington, D.C. David, how are things?
Things are great. Yes, I am bright. I am shiny, though later in the show, I'll be much more shiny when the makeup starts to wear off. Then I will be very, very shiny for sure.
The shiny Mac Daddy.
Oh, it's the shiny Mac Daddy. Now I have multiple name callings here on the show. Oh, my goodness. Speaking of callings, I don't know, is that a transition? Terrance Bates has a calling to do news because he does it every morning, and he does it so well. Terrance, good to see you in Denver with the headlines. Top of the morning to you, sir.
Top of the morning, sir. That transition was dark and dull, though. You like that? See how I play on words? Bright and shiny, dark and dull? All right. As President Trump heads to Michigan today for his latest campaign stop, he's licking his wounds a bit after a New York judge ruled that he committed fraud for years while building his real estate empire. Tuesday, that judge also ordered that some of Mr. Trump's companies be removed from his control and dissolved. The ruling is part of the civil suit brought by New York Attorney General Letitia James. James successfully argued that President Trump and his company deceived banks, insurers, and others by massively overvaluing his assets and exaggerating his net worth on paperwork that were used in making deals and securing loans. Tonight's second GOP presidential primary debate at the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library in California will feature 7 candidates. President Trump would make an 8th, but of course he won't be attending. Former Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson also won't be on the big stage after failing to meet the Republican National Committee's requirements of 3% support in 2 polls from early voting states or 1 national poll. Ron DeSantis, Tim Scott, Nikki Haley, Vivek Ramaswamy, Chris Christie, Doug Burgum, and Mike Pence will duke it out over issues ranging from government spending to border security to foreign policy. As hundreds of thousands of federal workers are preparing for the increasingly real possibility that they'll be furloughed at the end of this week, credit rating service Moody's is warning that a government shutdown would have negative implications for the government's current AAA credit rating, which, by the way, is the highest. If there is a shutdown, it would mark the 4th in a decade. Tuesday night, House Republicans narrowly agreed to start debate on a package of bills to fund parts of the government. The Senate, on the other hand, passed a stopgap measure to keep government agencies funded through November 17th in order to buy time for Congress to pass a long-term budget. Some House Republicans, though, willing to let the government shut down in lieu of remaining on the current spending path. That's a quick check of your headlines. Of course, I'll have more headlines coming your way here in just a little bit. But Dr. G, can we open up the good book now?
Let's do it, Terrance. Want to check out today's Bible verse from Jesus Calling? It says this: the eternal God is your refuge, and underneath are the everlasting arms. He will drive out your enemy before you, saying, destroy him. Deuteronomy 33:27. This is why I think it is so important to pray for our enemies. And as we are looking at this ruling that you talked about today, Terrance, it has me fired up. Them evaluating the president's beautiful Mar-a-Lago estate that is one of the only properties that actually stretches from the lake to the sea, thus the words Mar-e-Lago, right? And evaluating that at $18 million is laughable on its face. You can barely buy anything for under $10 million on the island. And Mar-a-Lago is certainly one of the most beautiful properties, the most historic, gold-clad, renovated every single year, 5.5-star rating hotels and properties on the whole island. So that is just, it's the discrimination, the Trump derangement syndrome, right, is truly on.
Trump derangement syndrome. I like that.
Yeah, for sure. And we shouldn't be surprised. This has been going on now. Lolita James has wanted to do this for a very long time. And if they wanted to do it, they could have tried to do it a long time ago. But no, of course, they're going to do it now politically. We know that's what it's all about. Speaking of politics, let's talk about the GOP debate tonight. Womp womp. Put me to sleep. I'm going to bed at 8 o'clock because the debate's at 9 o'clock tonight. There it is at the Ronald Reagan Library. Beautiful library. Sadly, the candidates are all just wannabes at this point. This is where the second debate will take place, 9 p.m. Eastern. It'll be on the Fox Business Network. Because of his current poll standings, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is going to be at center stage. Good for him. His poll numbers sure aren't center stage. Flanky DeSantis, Vivek Ramaswamy, former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley. Then you've got South Carolina Senator Tim Scott, former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie will be in the next spots. Maybe he'll take up a couple of spots. Sorry, I had to say it. Rounding out the debate stage. I'm sorry, I got to say it. Rounding out the debate stage, North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum and former Vice President Mike Pence. That's sad for Pence. I mean, he's totally on the end there. He's not even relevant. Asa Hutchinson, speaking of not relevant, did not make the cut to the debate this time. His polling too low to meet the debate standard. So, Dr. Gina, this is clearly what we're going to see tonight, which is not much of anything.
Well, I think it might be a little more combative than the last time, right? Certainly everything I'm hearing is that it will be more combative than the last time. What to watch for tonight also is who comes out as Trump's main rival, and that main rival, someone that may be President Trump's pick for running mate. At least that's the speculation, and that's the way it's been done traditionally. I don't know if President Trump's going to go that route or not, though. As for the former president, who has a huge lead over every other GOP candidate, he will not even participate in tonight's event. The president instead will be speaking to striking members of the United Auto Workers Union in Detroit. Beginning 1 hour, coincidentally, guys, this is all happenstance, 1 hour before the GOP debate begins. Talk about optional programming there, right? Very interesting. Yeah. Now, yesterday, Joe Biden joined the auto workers on the picket line in solidarity, becoming the first resident of the White House in history to do so. And joining us now is somebody who knows the pulse of the GOP, knows the pulse of MAGA, and all things that everyone's talking about on the web. Kaylin Dorr is the former chief marketing officer for President Trump's 2020 election campaign and has held other roles in the White House as well, and the U.S. Department of Treasury to boot. Kaylin is also the former global head of engagement for Getter, the fastest growing social media platform in history, and is now a contributor to Real America's Voice. Welcome to the team, Kaylin Dorr. We're so happy to have you. Kaylin, in this epic race for second place, right? Who, Kaylin, in your opinion, has the most to win, and who, in your opinion, has the most to lose?
Well, I want to first off thank you for having me on today. I noticed you used the word pulse. However, you can't use that within a minute-long time frame from saying Joe Biden. The guy is a cadaver. So I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna forgive you on that one. Okay, but no, there is a ton of exciting things to look at tonight. If you're interested in people who are trying to live out their dreams and really giving it a good shot, I think it'll be interesting to see whether or not Ron DeSantis takes a turn and attacks President Trump by name. I think in the first debate he had a very, very, very underwhelming performance, and you saw Vivek Ramaswamy eat his lunch essentially by being the candidate that Ron DeSantis said he was going to be, right? He had that long pregame period where he was telling everyone he was going to, kick some butt and take some names, and he kind of showed up with a whimper. I think Vivek ate his lunch and won the day then. So it'll be very interesting to see that, and also if we can figure out who Doug Burgum is. I'm very interested in figuring out kind of which one of those white guys up on stage ends up being Doug Burgum. It's going to be very interesting.
Oh, yeah, the mystery of Doug Burgum. That's the big storyline tonight for sure. All right, so, Kaylin, let me ask you a little bit about DeSantis and Nikki Haley, because Nikki Haley actually has been gaining. I say gaining. It's not about on Trump. It's about on DeSantis. I mean, in New Hampshire, she's actually above now DeSantis. So what do you make of Nikki Haley tonight? Because she actually did relatively well. I know, Gina. I'll give you smelling salts later. She did relatively well in that first debate. Her and DeSantis will be interesting to see, because DeSantis wants to kind of knock her down a little bit.
Well, it's interesting if you take a look at what Ron DeSantis' strategy appears to be doing. He appears to be shooting for Iowa and trying to win Iowa and Iowa alone. That's why in New Hampshire they call him to fifth place, right? He's solely focused. He's moved his residency from the state of Florida to an unnamed cornfield in the state of Iowa, and everything rests on what happens tonight. I think he's given himself a countdown clock. There are conversations between donors and senior Ron DeSantis campaign folks that say, we've only got 30 days to beat this guy. What are we going to do? So I think we're really looking at the Ron versus Nikki dynamic. I think Nikki's got to come out aggressive. I mean, she's got to come out really aggressive and name names and take no prisoners, because there's nothing to lose at this point. I mean, you're already, 30, 40, 50 points down in some polls to President Trump. This is all just fun for the love of the game at this point, and you have no reason not to. I think it's going to be a snooze fest overall, but that's where the fireworks are going to come up. I think you've got a great point.
Everybody has their identity at the top of this race for second place. One of the people that has obviously identified herself as the queen of identity politics and feminism and all things counter to MAGA is Nikki Haley. But we also have Vivek Ramaswamy. He's kind of the wild card here, because he came out with personality that Ron DeSantis simply doesn't seem to have. Quickly, because we've got like 30 seconds, can Ron DeSantis, Kaylin, can he sprout a personality in the midst of all this? Do you think he went to magnanimous training? I don't know.
No, he is Scott Walker 2.0. He is great on paper, and they are for years and years and years after this going to teach this in campaign school. Do not do a single thing Ron DeSantis has done. Honestly, this is malpractice of the highest order for a candidate with a record like his and with the money and war chest that he's had to perform the way he's performing is malpractice. Vivek's going to kick his butt tonight.
Sadly. Thank you, Kaylin Drar. Again, welcome to our team here at Real America's Voice. Up next on American Sunrise, Hillary has a dire warning for Joe Biden as White House insiders don't mince words and say that the situation is disastrous. The details ahead as American Sunrise continues.
morning time check, 16 minutes past the top of the hour. So good to have you along for this edition of American Sunrise. Hey everyone, I'm Terrance Bates. All right, folks, take a look at this headline. First, though, I do have to warn you, some of the language is explicit, so you may want to send your kids out of the room if they're in the room with you. All right, there you go. That was your warning. So here's the headline. Hillary Clinton warns Joe Biden in private meeting that third-party candidates could prove disastrous for him, as White House insider calls situation pretty effing concerning. Oh, all right. So here are some of the bullet points of this particular article. First of all, one of the ideas is that Hillary Clinton privately warned President Joe Biden to take third-party challengers seriously, and there are a number of third-party challengers in the race already. Clinton also lost the 2016 election in part because Green Party nominee Jill Stein siphoned off some of her potential votes, so Hillary Clinton, of course, is rather sensitive to the issue of third-party candidates. And on the November 2024 ballot, Biden could face Green Party candidate Cornel West and a moderate no-labels endorsed candidate. So all of these are issues that potentially could impact President Joe Biden as he seeks to be reelected. So David and Gina, I'm going to bring you back in here. David, I'm going to start with you because this is kind of your wheelhouse. I know that you've done some significant research on third-party candidates, and the impact they could have in this upcoming 2024 race, not just on Joe Biden, but also potentially benefiting President Trump.
Well, that's right. And the polls show, every single poll shows that if you put a third-party candidate in the race, Biden goes down by about 3 or 4 percentage points. The NBC News poll that was just out a few days ago, not the ABC poll, but there was an NBC poll that was out, shows that as well. So, yeah, I can't believe I'm about to say this, but Hillary is right. You'll never hear me say those words, but in this case, she is right. And the warning should be heeded by this White House. And Cornel West is going to be a threat as a third-party candidate. And here's why. He's going after the ultra-liberals in the party. And Joe Biden and this administration has decided to go ahead and target the ultra-liberals as well. They've ditched the blue-collar vote. As much as Joe Biden goes on a picket line, who cares about that? He's ditched the blue-collar vote, and they've made their bed with ultra-liberals. Well, the problem is that Cornel West is to the left, believe it or not, of Joe Biden on a lot of issues, and so he's going to pull off some of those ultra liberals as well, and that's going to hurt Biden, Gina, in 2024 if there is a third-party candidate, which at this point Cornel West is on the ballot definitely in a few key battleground states.
Yeah, forgive me, but my cynicism tells me that all these people are in this to make money. Remember, where things don't make sense, I always tell our audiences, follow the money. And if you look back at traditional third-party candidates or even candidates that just got in and tried to cause problems, like, for example, Bernie Sanders, right? They get paid off. They're there to basically, ask the Democrats to, hey, what are you going to pay me to get out? And I think it's no different here. I think these folks will hang on as long as they can until the right offer comes along for a big job for them or for their kids or for all of the above. And then they slip away into the night, just like Bernie Sanders did. So I don't hold a lot of hope for this. But her first mistake was telling Joe Biden, because Joe Biden doesn't know what he's had for breakfast this morning, let alone that he's even in a race for president. She should have just told Obama where the puppet master is. Anyway, that's my thought.
Yeah. Hillary who? Okay. Who's Hillary? Who's this person I'm talking to?
Exactly.
You are fired up this morning, Dr. G. I like it.
Oh, it happens.
Yes, you are.
It happens. Thanks, Terrance. What do we have next?
I like it. En fuego. Up next, how much of your tax money is headed to Ukraine while Americans are going hungry? Ahead, we'll chew on the shocking numbers from an unlikely source.
This news break is brought to you by AMAC, Association of Mature American Citizens.
New Haven, Connecticut. I like the music. We're jamming here on American Sunrise. And I just say jamming. I am a mature American citizen if I'm saying jamming. They call me a boomer. I don't really care. I'm old. That's fine. Not a problem. Wait, I was going to say, speaking of old, here's Terrance Bates. No, that's not a good transition. But Terrance does have more with the AMAC headlines.
The Association of Mature American Citizens is the conservative voice for Americans 50 and older. AMAC is fighting for the values that you hold dear. Join today. Together, we can write the course of America.
Topping your headlines, President Trump will be in Michigan today talking with union workers. He's foregoing tonight's GOP presidential primary to be with unionists as the United Auto Workers Union continues its face-off with the big three American car manufacturers. Today's Trump visit comes on the heels of President Biden taking to the picket line with striking UAW workers on Tuesday. Despite smiles from the union's president and a group of workers who showed up for the photo op, House Speaker Kevin McCarthy dropping a truth bomb about the presidential picket line visit, saying the Biden administration's policies created this picket line.
Heard me say it many times. Wall Street didn't build the country. The middle class built the country. Unions built the middle class. That's a fact. So let's keep going. You deserve what you've earned, and you've earned a hell of a lot more than you're getting paid now.
And Kevin McCarthy saying that the president's insistence on electric vehicles is part of what's leading to the problems involving the UAW. The UAW's president, by the way, simply pointing out that President Biden was the first sitting U.S. president to join striking workers on the picket line. In remarks to the group, Biden told workers that what they deserve is more than what they're getting, which is the kind of rhetoric that one, of course, would expect. Hunter Biden is continuing his recent slate of lawsuits. This time, he's targeting former New York City Mayor and Trump advisor Rudy Giuliani. On Tuesday's court filing accuses Giuliani of violating Hunter's privacy over information that was allegedly taken from the first son's infamous laptop. The lawsuit, which was filed in federal court in Los Angeles, also alleges that Giuliani and his former lawyer, Robert Costello, are responsible for the, quote, total annihilation of Hunter Biden's digital privacy. It's the 53-year-old's latest lawsuit after suing a former Trump White House aide, as well as the Internal Revenue Service, over concerns about his image following the release of information from his laptop and whistleblower accounts of the investigation surrounding the first son. Today's suit, or actually Tuesday's suit, comes as Hunter is set to be in a Delaware courtroom next week to plead not guilty to federal gun charges. Again, that's all expected to happen next week. And the Supreme Court is moving forward with redrawing Alabama's congressional voting districts. The Republican-drawn map has been struck down twice now, once by the Supreme Court and a second time by a lower court. Tuesday, the High Court justices rejected the state of Alabama's plea to retain the Republican-drawn districts, most recently deemed illegal by that lower court. Now, a court-appointed special master will continue work on drafting a new map with fair representation for black voters. Monday, the special master submitted 3 proposals which would create a second congressional district where black voters comprise a majority of the voting population. Well, there's an organization that still backs Obamacare, gun control, and extreme transgender policies that endanger our kids. They claim to be bipartisan, but last year, 95% of their donations went to Democrats. AARP doesn't represent the values of American seniors. In fact, there is a conservative alternative, and that would be AMAC. It's the Association of Mature American Citizens. It proudly champions Americans' right to free speech, religious liberty, and the Second Amendment. AMAC defends parents' rights to protect their children and is fighting to restore America's election integrity. With more than 2 million members nationwide, AMAC is pro-faith, it's pro-family, and it's pro-freedom. I am a proud member of AMAC. Yes, I am now 50 years old, which means I'm technically mature. I encourage you to join as well. So let's send AARP a message that they don't represent conservative seniors. Join AMAC today at amac.us/sunrise. That's amac.us/sunrise. SUNRISE. I'm sure you were able to spell that on your own, but I figured I would help you out. All right, let's go over to David now. And David, Dr. G was just telling us that we need to follow the money in all things, but unfortunately, when following the money over to Ukraine, it's pretty easy to get lost.
For sure, Terrance. And there's a lot of money at stake, billions and billions. And let me keep going on. Billions and billions of dollars that the United States is sending to Ukraine. By the way, 25 billion of that is non-military aid. And that's something 60 Minutes, believe it or not, picked up on recently. Take a look at this headline, because they did a whole big piece on it, as you can see them with the ticking clock here this weekend. But here's the headline. Take a look at this 60-minute segment. U.S. taxpayers subsidizing Ukraine's economy, paying all of their first responders. The U.S. has sent more than $70 billion worth of aid to Ukraine since Russian troops crossed its border last year, but now a battle is brewing in Washington over the Biden administration's request for over $20 billion more. A recent CNN poll actually showed that 55% of Americans do not want any money going over to Ukraine, any more money going over to Ukraine. There's the poll. Congress should not authorize additional funding, which is really a lot of what this government shutdown is currently about. Let's get more on the 60 Minutes report from Tara Dahl, Real America's Voice contributor. Tara, what do you make of this information? We've known this for a while, and this is what congressional Republicans want to see happen, which is, what is actually going on with this money that we're sending, rather than just giving it over willy-nilly.
Yeah, good morning, David. It's good to be with you. Americans are spending $223 million a day on Ukraine. We're spending $6.8 billion a month on Ukraine. And so when you're looking at this, and then CBS, they're the ones that reported this, where the money is going, American taxpayer dollars are funding the 57,000 first responders in Ukraine. So when you have Democrats here calling for defunding of the police, and you compare that to the border and the funding at the border, President Biden has asked for the additional $24 billion for support for Ukraine and only $4 billion for the border. So I think those small businesses in America would like to have the government subsidize their businesses than Ukraine.
Yeah, for sure. Speaking of small businesses, the 60 Minutes report goes on to talk about that small businesses there in Ukraine are getting subsidized left and right, getting helped out like small business owners here in America. This is insane. And then you've got Samantha Power, head of USAID, and you knew a thing or two about USAID. You, of course, worked with them. So I'm curious to get your thoughts here. But she's saying about $1.2 billion of that money is going to those 57,000 first responders in Ukraine. Anytime I hear USAID, I get mightily concerned about our taxpayer dollars at work, or maybe not at work.
Yeah, I worked at USAID, and I have to say that is one agency that should 100% be defunded. I think if the American people were to see where our taxpayer dollars are being spent at USAID, they would be outraged, as I was outraged when I saw where our taxpayer dollars are being spent. What has happened at USAID is they have weaponized American taxpayer dollars and are promoting their leftist social agenda. They're promoting gender social programs. They're promoting abortion, and it is an agency that definitely needs to have accountability and be defunded.
And 30 seconds or so, Tara, but what's going to end up happening here if the government shuts down, let's be clear, federal workers won't get paid, but Ukrainian federal or first responders will get paid. And this is what's going on in America today. Let's just be clear about it.
And that's another great example, because the National Guard, if they do have the government shutdown, they will stop training for the National Guard at the border, but they'll continue the Ukrainian soldier training.
Upside down. America 180 for sure. Tara Dahl, thanks for being here. Stick around. We've got you later in the show, so don't go anywhere. Don't worry, you're paid by the minute. I'm sure I've seen your contract. No, I haven't. I haven't seen her contract. All right, when we come back, let's talk about coffee. Are you ready for another cup of Joe? Do you know how much is too much? That report ahead as American Sunrise continues.
American sunrise. Now, if coffee is part of your morning ritual or your daily productivity hack, I guess, you've probably wondered how much coffee is too much coffee. Well, experts say coffee does more good than bad overall. Studies have suggested coffee drinkers live longer and have lower risks of type 2 diabetes, Parkinson's disease, cardiovascular conditions, and even some cancers. But too much caffeine in a short period of time can cause a racing heart, as you probably have noticed. Who's not experienced this, right? Jitteriness, nausea, or trouble sleeping. However, experts say it's rare to experience dangerous side effects from drinking coffee. Most caffeine overdoses result from too fast of consumption of concentrated forms of caffeine like powders or supplements, things like that, or chugging multiple energy drinks like one of our techs in the control room has been known to do. But for coffee drinkers, you would need to consume, listen to this, 50 to 100 cups of coffee to be at risk. 50 to 100. Not happening for me today. I don't even have time for that. Who has time for that? And usually adults will feel their body reacting negatively and then cut back. So experts say most adults can safely consume 4 8-ounce cups of coffee. My goodness, that's still a lot. Or 6 espresso shots per day. I'm not going to be doing that either. Everyone knows the next medical crisis is just around the corner, whether it comes in the form of a pandemic or something much more mundane, like it could even be a bug bite of some sort. Well, you and your family want to be prepared, so that's where the Wellness Company comes in. You know the Wellness Company. We have their great doctors like Dr. Peter McCullough on all the time. The Wellness Company and their doctors are medical professionals that I am not, and you can trust their new medical emergency kits are the gold standard when it comes to keeping you safe and healthy. So be ready for anything. This medical emergency kit contains an assortment of life-saving medications. It even includes ivermectin and a Z-Pack. Medications hard to get when the government decides to clamp down. The medical emergency kit provides a guidebook to aid in the safe use of all of these life-saving medications, telling you exactly how to use them so you don't have to do all the research out there and get confused. Anyway, rest assured knowing that you have emergency antibiotics, you have antivirals, you have antiparasitics on hand to keep you and your family safe from whatever the globalists might throw at us next. Go to twc.health/voice today, and you can order it twc.health/voice. Use the promo code VOICE to save your 10%. All right, let me turn this over to David and the big T-Man. What's going on, Terrance?
Well, Dr. G, we want to shift gears a little bit and talk about one of the bigger stories of the day. And that, of course, will be tonight's second Republican presidential debate that's just hours away. In fact, many of us thought that now would be a good time to take a look at some of the poll numbers for the candidates who are running against President Trump. Let's just be honest about it. But the picture for everyone except President Trump, quite honestly, David, pretty bleak. Take a look at these numbers here, David. The Real Clear Politics average of the most up-to-date polling has President Trump besting the other candidates by a lead of 42.5%. As for the rest of the candidates, Ron DeSantis is next with about 14.5%, followed by Nikki Haley at 5.6%. Vivek Ramaswamy comes in at 5.1%. Mike Pence has 4.3% support. Tim Scott and Chris Christie tied at 2.8%, and Doug Burgum bringing up the rear at 1%. Go, Doug, 1%. Look at you. Asa Hutchinson, who didn't qualify for tonight's event, comes in at an anemic 0.6%. So joining us now with some insight into the GOP field and a look at what to expect from tonight's debate at the Reagan Library is Republican strategist Armen Kurdian. David also joining us for the conversation here. David, unlike what's going to happen tonight, sir, I yield the floor to you.
Well, thanks, Terrance and Armen. Good to see you. Let's start. Before I get to my first question, the one stat that was missing is 0.0%, which is the chance that all of them have to be the next president of the United States, for sure. Armen, what do you make of Ron DeSantis? Because I see all of these articles. Tonight's a make or break night for DeSantis. Give me a break. It's already been broken. I mean, make or break. How does he turn this around? I can't imagine all of a sudden we're going to see a new reinvented Ron DeSantis on the debate stage. And if it is a new reinvented DeSantis, it's not an authentic one.
Good morning, David and Terrance. So frankly, whether it's Ron DeSantis or Nikki Haley or Mike Pence, they're all really kind of in the same boat. Now, this national poll that you mentioned of 42.5% and the previous one at 47%, that is very serious. But of course, a lot of these candidates are also thinking that there are several caucuses and primaries prior to Super Tuesday, Iowa, New Hampshire, and South Carolina, where Trump's lead isn't quite as large. But like in Iowa, it's about 35 points, New Hampshire, 25 to 30. And in South Carolina, where Nikki Haley has moved up quite a bit, but she's pretty much taken market share from the other candidates not named Donald Trump, who still has a 25-point lead in South Carolina. So while a lot of them they've raised a lot of money, they've done a lot of the things that they have, Trump still has the name recognition and the bully pulpit. He's the one who has been president for 4 years. He's the one who's done all of these things. So you're going to see them go after each other a little bit. You'll probably see them go after Donald Trump. But hopefully what they will also remember is that the most important thing is that somebody not named Joe Biden or with a D after their name becomes president at the end of next year to save this country from a lot of the dereliction of duty and the disaster that this administration has been.
Armin, even the lower poll numbers that you just mentioned for President Trump still have him, for most experts' opinion, with an insurmountable lead. Even a 25-point lead, most experts would say that's insurmountable. But beyond that, let's kind of get to brass tacks here. Is tonight's debate really the debate that's going to start having people drop out? Obviously, the RNC, with its debate prep information and its debate kind of some of the rules, has forced some people off the stage. But will tonight's debate be the other thing that will have some of these candidates saying, okay, you know what, I'm going to drop out now?
That is a very good conventional wisdom. And generally speaking, if this were any other year but 2023, you'd probably be right. But there's two very different things happening here. First of all, it's the first time since, I think, like 1912, we have had an incumbent president who is now trying to get back into office, trying to get reelected. That hasn't happened for over a century. And on the other side, you also have Donald Trump with a lot of his legal woes and all the lawfare that has been levied against him. So you would generally be right that this could be make or break, but a lot of these folks are going to be staying in because they think, well, what happens here in April or May? Something really serious comes out, so they're going to maybe keep their powder dry and hedge their bets. But having said that, it is make or break for a lot of them to at least be one of those 3 or 4 who are going to have that chance to actually go in and see. So maybe while they're not looking to maybe take the lead, they are looking for positioning for that second place so that if something does happen to Trump, they can come in and hopefully save the day.
Yeah, Armin, of course, the debate is at the Reagan Library tonight, but we appreciate your time, and we'll be checking back with you on lots of different issues as it relates to GOP politics. Thanks so very, very much.
Thanks. Good morning.
Armin, thank you so much. All right, David, so we're going to see you on the other side of the break, but we want to switch gears now and take a look at the economy. With government set to shut down in just a few days, the country's debt surpassing $33 trillion, and interest rates still sky high these days, realizing the American dream is more of a dream than it is an achievable reality these days for so many Americans. Real America's Voice correspondent and Breaking Point host David Zier is here now to try and help us make sense of what's going on with our tax dollars. David, it is always a pleasure to see you, particularly this early in the morning. Good to see you.
Good morning, Terrance. Existing home sales, the debt crisis is huge, but the existing home sales, along with new residential construction, continue to struggle as interest rates take their toll. The National Association of Realtors is reporting that existing home sales have dropped 21% year over year. And there was an 18% decrease the year before that. And new home sales of newly constructed homes are down 8.7% in August, 4 times worse than expected. Redfin is reporting that more deals have been canceled in August of 2023 at the highest rate in 10 months. 60,000 deals have died. 16% of the whole market. Contracts have died. The home building market has suffered as well. The National Association of Home Builders Housing Market Index is down from historic highs under the Trump administration, down from a high of 90 in November 2020 to 45 in September 2023, a 50% drop. And from 2017 through 2020, the average HMI index was 66, 33% higher than from 2012 to 2014. Multifamily housing starts, construction starts dropped 42% year over year. Single-family home construction has dropped 15% Single-family home construction has dropped 15% year over year. A silver lining is that building permits have stayed relatively steady. But just keep in mind, in conclusion, that 30-year fixed loans are 7.19% this week, up from 6.71% 3 months ago. That's almost $800 more per month per family, or about $10,000 a year from just 3 years ago on a mortgage. And also, in closing, the prospect of owning a home, pursuing the American dream, buying a home for a young person is a fleeting notion for many, with a shortage of 1.5 million housing units in the U.S. right now.
David, you put some numbers to it that really puts it all in perspective. And let's just be honest, those numbers for many people make buying a home prohibitive. So let's switch gears and talk a little bit about the upcoming government shutdown. What will the overall impact of the government shutdown be? And we're predicting that it's going to happen. What will the overall impact be, do you think, economically for all of us, for all Americans, not just those government workers?
I don't know. If government isn't operating, they can't pass any more lousy legislation. In 1996, when Newt Gingrich shut down the government, it forced Clinton's hand to give the biggest tax cuts in American history, and the economy took off like a rocket ship. And we've shut down the government like 17 times since the early 1900s. It wouldn't be a first. I don't think it'll have a major impact if it shuts down, even for a couple of weeks. We need to do something, and we need to hold these people's feet to the fire, right?
Yeah. And the other thing that comes to mind is the national debt. We're talking it's now surpassed $33 trillion. I mean, you talked about those numbers for people trying to get their mortgage. You obviously have to save and get a little bit of a nest egg in order to qualify for a mortgage. Well, the same rules apply to the government. You can't just keep spending when you've got debt at $33 trillion plus.
Yeah, it's definitely out of control. And keep in mind that people are locked in place with low mortgage interest rates from the past on 30-year fixed loans, and they're not putting their houses on the market, driving up the cost of an average home. And it's even, even more of a fleeting prospect for people to buy a home, and they're stuck renting at $3,000 a month, and you can never save to buy a home. So add to that increased taxes, you're in trouble.
Yeah, absolutely. David's here. Always good to see you. By the way, stay close to your phone. I'm going to call you. I'm looking to buy a new home or something like that. I'm going to need a loan from you, my friend. Up next in our Stay Awake Not Woke segment, Howard Stern and the feud between he and President Biden, or President Trump, excuse me. We're back in a moment.
Good morning, everybody. Again, it is time for our Stay Awake, Not Woke segment, sponsored by Beard Vet Coffee. BeardVet.com. You use your promo code RAV. You get your 10% off. Best logo ever. Today's woke story goes a little something like this. Last week, Howard Stern took to SiriusXM radio to respond to his fans' complaints that he's gone woke. He said he has, and that he's proud of it, with a few choice words we can't actually repeat on TV because it's Howard Stern and that's how he does. Anyway, conservative media covered it, and President Trump weighed in on Truth Social with this post. He said, calling Stern, who by the way is his former friend, a quote, broken weirdo. Unattractive, both inside and out. Oh my goodness. Wow. Now we have this headline. Howard Stern hits back at Donald Trump over woke flap, saying, I stole the excitement. Stern said on his radio show that Trump just got charged up when he saw Stern discussed on all of his conservative media platforms, and that Trump was ticked off because Stern, quote, stole the excitement for a minute or two. Anyway, we'll keep you updated on this little feud going on between former friends as it unfolds. And always interesting there. There you have the two gentlemen. Guys, Terrance, your thoughts on this? I mean, who's going to ultimately win, I guess is what it comes down to in the battle of the words?
I mean, ultimately, you can't out-talk Donald Trump. I don't care who you are. Howard is pretty, you're not going to out-talk Donald Trump. Howard is good, but you're not going to out-talk Donald Trump. You know, again, for me, grow up. Grow up. Come on. We have bigger fish to fry, gentlemen. Grow up.
Yeah, and I mean, come on. Howard Stern is just morally reprehensible. He really is. I mean, he's been leading the Sodom and Gomorrah charge for a very long time in America. This guy, and then he has the nerve, believe it or not, to call out Lauren Boebert for what happened at that Denver theater during Beetlejuice. He's like, that was horrible what she did. Really, Howard?
He looks like Beetlejuice. Okay, I'm sorry. I went there. I shouldn't have. I'm bigger than that.
No,
I'm sorry,
go
David.
there.
Well, and
I'm better than that. I'm better than that.
Can we discuss the mental...
Say it.
Yeah, because this is a man who went in his house and hid for years through the COVID.
Yes.
He literally just emerged from COVID. I'm sorry, you might be paranoid if. I'm just throwing that out there, guys. What do you think?
No, can I quickly say something about that? I'm glad you brought that up. He's living in fear. And COVID was a great example of it. He's a germaphobe as well, by the way. And so this is a guy, he peddles immorality and he lives in fear. That is not a way to go through life. And when Donald Trump said he was unattractive both inside and out, honestly, not fake news. It's true. Okay. I think that's exactly what he is, Terrance. And you're right. Donald Trump will win this battle. And honestly, does anybody even care about this battle ultimately? I mean, Howard Stern's been irrelevant for like ever.
Slow clap, David. Does anybody really care? What I care about is what President Trump is going to say when he talks to union workers in Michigan today. What I care about is his reaction to what's said on the debate stage in California as his Republican rivals speak. That's what I care about. Howard Stern is so far off my radar right now, and what he has to say about anything in the world. That's it. I couldn't care less.
Yeah, I had frankly forgotten that Howard Stern existed. I'm sorry. I don't mean that. It's just that's not my thing. I've never listened to him, not one time in my life. I hear people comment on things he says, and I'll hear clips of things he says, but I've never listened to him. I've never found him in any way appealing, inside or out, as President Trump said. Here we carry on with things that actually do matter, like to people's families and their pocketbooks and their lives. Up next will be our moment of faith, something that really does matter as well. There are few bonds more powerful than that between a father and a son. I've seen it, you've seen it. But when you're Joe Biden and the son in question is Hunter, how strong is too strong? Or is it strong at all? How forgiving is too forgiving? Or is it about forgiveness? Is Joe Biden doing a disservice to fatherhood when it comes to Hunter? That's next as American Sunrise continues.
American Sunrise. Love that butt music. I'm getting into it. Of course, I don't want to pull a hip, pull a muscle, or anyhow, I don't know what I'm saying at this point. It's time for a moment of faith. How about Hunter and Joe? They're a pair. They're a father-son duo. And a lot of commentators in the news have claimed that Joe Biden's protective relationship with Hunter is that of a loving, forgiving, caring father. The president often held up as a role model to the nation. But is he a good role model for fatherhood? What can the Bible teach us about this? Should we as parents be like the president and overlook and make excuses for our children when they have gone astray? Well, let's discuss that more with Jim Mosley, the author of the book, The Duke of D.C., and we like to call him the Bible History Guy because that's exactly what he is, thebiblehistoryguy.com. Jim, thanks for being here. Tell us a little bit about this from a biblical perspective, because you want to be supportive and loving as a father to your kids, but there's also quite a few other dynamics at work here. Talk to us about that.
Well, absolutely. I don't think this is really only about the president and his son. I think it's about the commentators who are casting this kind of relationship as the ideal of fatherhood. And I think back to the book of Job, and I have a little different perspective than a lot of people have on Job, but I think maybe God was being a trifle ironic when he called him righteous. But we learn in the first chapter of Job that his children, his sons, were holding wild parties every single day, inviting the three sisters to come and join them. And when it was all done, what Job would do, and this is every single day, he would go and make sacrifices to atone for the sins of his children, because he said, it may be that my children have sinned and cursed God in their hearts. Wait a minute, maybe they've sinned? He's letting them have their mansions and his mansions and his wealth, and they're throwing crazy parties all the time. Maybe he sinned. Why didn't he stop them? And who told Job that he could atone for his children's sin? The Bible says each one shall be put to death for his own sin. So should we be like the president, overlook and make excuses for our children when they've gone astray? No. Our Father in heaven holds us accountable. And I think what we have to do is we should show compassion. The Bible says, Psalm 103, as the Father shows compassion to his children, so the Lord shows compassion to those who fear him. But we also have to be capable of discipline and tough love. I mean, Ephesians says, fathers, bring up your children in the instruction of the Lord and discipline. Train up a child in the way he should go. And even when he's old, he will not depart from it. And we all know, if you spare the rod, you spoil the child. So I think we have to be ready to. Go ahead, yeah.
Yeah, and we've got about 30 seconds left, but there's so many examples in the Bible. I think of Eli and his sons. I mean, they were doing bad, and Eli said, don't do bad, but then didn't take any action.
Right, same with David and Absalom. Well, the great quotation is from Hebrews, for the moment, all discipline seems painful, but later it yields a peaceful fruit of righteousness to those who have been trained by it.
Jim Mosley, great biblical advice. The moment of faith. You have lived up to the moment of faith. We now have a moment of faith. Thank you, Jim Mosley. I appreciate that. The Bible History Guy, go check him out. All right, we've got a lot more in the second hour of American Sunrise. Back in a moment.
his second hour of American Sunrise. President Trump heads to Detroit to stand with the United Auto Workers Union as they fight for their livelihood and a fair working wage. We're on the ground awaiting the president.
Can we say time to go? Bob Menendez may be remaining defiant in the wake of the growing money scandal surrounding him and his wife, but now it's not just Republicans telling him it's time to leave Capitol Hill. So are other Senate Democrats. We have the story.
And the polls don't lie, and all of them are not looking good for Uncle Joe. We've got the breakdown. All of that ahead as the second hour of American Sunrise starts right now.
We've got your back as you start your day.
You are articulating what the majority of Americans feel today, and I really appreciate that you do.
Y'all tell the truth.
You guys are our voice.
We watch you every morning while getting ready for work.
All right, welcome back to the second hour of American Sunrise. I'm Dr. Gina. Let's bring in the one, the only, David Brody out in Washington, D.C. David, did you reapply your makeup between hour one and hour two? Inquiring minds want to know.
I'm assuming that's a rhetorical question because you know the answer. There it is. Mac Daddy lives on in infamy. Yes, Gina. Do you want some of this, by the way? I mean, not that you need it. I'm just saying, do you want any of it? I mean,
I'm thinking, David, that we should make Mac a sponsor of this show. They're probably woke as can be, but you do a great job advertising for them every day by accident. It's not your fault that, that's become your nickname, right?
Well, that's correct. And just so you know, if they ever did become a sponsor, I want some serious cash with that. All right. That's all I got to say. I want some residual money on that. All right. Terrance Bates. Why did I say that? Terrance Bates in Denver with the headlines. Terrance, have you applied your makeup today?
What are you talking about, makeup? I wake up like this, my friend.
Well, that's all natural. That's all natural.
Me too, Terrance. Me too.
You too, Dr. G. You feel me, right? Morning's headlines. President Trump will skip tonight's GOP presidential debate in California and instead rally with striking union workers in Michigan. During tonight's speech, the 45th president is expected to lay out his position on the Biden administration's push for electric vehicles, saying that increased manufacturing of EVs threatens the livelihoods of blue-collar workers. In the meantime, United Auto Workers Union President Shawn Fain says he will not meet with President Trump during his visit today. In fact, Fain was front and center on Tuesday when President Biden became the first sitting U.S. president to join striking workers on the picket line. Mr. Biden spent about 12 minutes with those striking workers and just over an hour in Michigan before heading to California for meetings and fundraisers today. President Trump is reacting to Tuesday's New York ruling, claiming that he committed fraud by overstating the value of his properties. Releasing this statement on Truth Social, the real estate mogul is disputing the judge's valuation of Mar-a-Lago, writing in part, the Democrat operative valued Mar-a-Lago, the most spectacular and valuable property in Palm Beach, Florida, to be worth as low as $18 million, when in actuality, it could be worth almost 100 times that amount. He goes on to write, my civil rights have been violated, and some appellate court, whether federal or state, must reverse this horrible, un-American decision. On Tuesday, the judge also ordered that some of Mr. Trump's New York companies be removed from his control and dissolved. The ruling is part of the civil suit that was brought by New York Attorney General Letitia James, who argued that President Trump and his company deceived banks, insurers, and others by massively overvaluing assets and exaggerating net worth on paperwork used in making deals and securing loans. California Governor Gavin Newsom, taking a shot at the Second Amendment. Listen to this. On Tuesday, Newsom signed a first-in-the-nation state excise tax law on sales of firearms and ammunition. The measure is billed as raising $160 million a year to prevent gun violence in schools and elsewhere. The California gun tax will go into effect next July and essentially add an 11% state tax on top of the existing federal tax on guns and ammo. Tuesday's signing comes just 4 days after a federal judge shot down California's ban on high-capacity ammunition magazines, ruling that the move was unconstitutional. The state's new gun tax is part of a package of gun safety bills that Newsom signed on Tuesday. That's a quick check of your headlines. I'll have more headlines coming your way here shortly. But now let's get you back to Dr. Gina and David. By the way, David, your makeup looks flawless. Am I supposed to say that to another guy?
No, I'll take it. I'll take a compliment. Thank you.
You know, both of you
Dr.
look
G,
flawless
you
every
look
morning.
Like you wake up just like that. I understand.
I wake up
We're
anything
correct.
but this. I'm just going to tell you right now, you do not want to see this face before makeup and lights and all the things. Anyway, Terrance, thank you so much for those headlines. As you mentioned in those headlines, President Trump will deliver a primetime speech to union workers in Detroit tonight, and you can watch it right here on RAV. That is our live coverage. By the way, just like always, starts at 8 p.m. And thousands of United Auto Workers are on strike after Detroit's 3 automakers failed to reach a contract agreement with the union. Trump said the United Auto Workers leadership has failed its members. David, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, first of all, there's a lot to unpack here, and let's begin with Trump's speech tonight. He is going to be at a non-union, that's the key, a non-union area. Specifically, let me just give it to you. It's in Macomb County at a plant that is not
Just
affiliated with the
Detroit,
UAW. And I think that's very important to understand here, because this is not an endorsement of the liberal unions. You know, Joe Biden was there with the liberal unions yesterday, but Trump will not be necessarily supporting, or he's definitely not supporting the liberal union bosses. So that's a clear distinction here. And I think people need to, our audience obviously gets it, but I think voters writ large need to understand that that's important. Also, here's another interesting part. He's going to Macomb County, Michigan, and Macomb County is a key swing district. So it's Michigan not only is a key swing state, but Macomb County is a key swing district, because if Donald Trump doesn't win Macomb County, he might not win the state of Michigan. So I think there's a lot of politics clearly involved in this as well.
Yeah. You know, David, it's interesting. My husband, as you may know, used to run the Open Shop, which is kind of the competitor to the unions. Entire affiliation in California, used to work for them. And it was interesting because his job was basically, from a nonpartisan perspective, to analyze how union money, right, went into Democrat campaigns. Then Democrats in California passed legislation to give all jobs, all government taxpayer-funded jobs, right, to the unions, so that then the unions again could give the money back to the Democrats. And it was a big Ponzi scheme. And my husband exposed it, and that is exactly why many people don't know why I'm in Florida. That is exactly why my family ended up in Florida, because the governor of California made my husband's job illegal, actually wrote it into legislation that it went as far as the Supreme Court, if you can believe it. So this is the level of corruption within these unions. It's almost unspeakable. And when I used to tell people our story of why we had to leave California and go anyplace else, they didn't believe me. And do you know something? Our political climate has become so corrupt that now when I tell people that story, they straight up believe me. I mean, at first people used to go, wait, the governor wrote bills to make your family, your husband's job illegal in the state of California when it's a sanctuary state and anyone who's illegal can come work there, but your husband can't work there? And it's absolutely the truth. It's unbelievable, Terrance, how things have changed in this country. Now everybody believes that story.
No, it is absolutely unbelievable. Let's bring in Steve Gruber now, though. He is going to be on the ground covering President Trump's speech this evening. He is there in Michigan, so of course he has insider knowledge on the climate there in Michigan. Steve, can you hear me? Terrance Bates here.
Terrance, how are you? I can hear you just fine. And the climate in Michigan is that, you know, this governor here, Governor Gretchen Whitmer, has done a lot of things to damage the job atmosphere, the business environment in Michigan. And that's really emphasized by what's happening with the walkout from the United Auto Workers Union. First of all, Shawn Fain, the president of the UAW, doing something that has not been done in 70 years. That's focus on all three major car manufacturers at the same time: Ford, General Motors, and Stellantis, the makers of Chrysler and Jeep. So the walkout is in day 12 or 13 now. It affects 20 states now because distribution centers were added to the mix here a few days ago. And so you've got 146,000 auto workers, hourly workers in the industry here for those three companies. Here's the problem being faced by the United Auto Workers Union. In order to build EVs, which is the big push, as everybody knows from the government, that will reduce the need for labor by about 40%, Terrance, and that will reduce the number of hourly auto workers in America to less than 90,000. Think about how far we've come, less than 90,000. During the strike here a few weeks ago, I learned that UPS has 340,000 employees. The United Auto Workers Union has less than half of that now. It'll be at a quarter of that when this is all done, if we go to EVs the way that they're pushing. And you hear some of the people on the picket lines yesterday. I played some of it in the morning show here on Real America's Voice. Auto workers that are out on strike say they can't even afford the EVs that they'll be asked to build, that will eliminate 40% of the workforce. 60,000 people in the auto industry will lose their jobs, Terrance, and they can't afford the cars they're building. A lot to talk about here. And the other thing is, Joe Biden showed up yesterday, right? Joe Biden came yesterday at the request of Sean Fain, president of the UAW. He was on the picket line. It was all this fanfare. Joe Biden's going to join the picket line. First time in American history. An American president's been on the picket line. He was there 12 minutes. 12 whole minutes he dedicated to these United Auto Workers Union. He spoke for 90 seconds. Donald Trump, as you know, I'll be covering tonight. He'll be north of Detroit in Macomb County in Clinton Township. I expect him to talk for more than a minute and a half, and I expect he'll be there for more than 12 minutes. Just a guess.
Yeah.
Just a guess.
And Steve, David here in D.C., look, this was a bit awkward. He's there at the picket line, and yet, in essence, it's the government that wants to take jobs away from the workers that he's, so to speak, on the line with. I mean, it's just remarkable.
Yeah,
and they don't
here's
get
something
it.
else.
They're cheering him on. They don't get it,
Let me point out two other things. That happened yesterday, or didn't happen. You probably heard this from a couple of days ago. Ford Motor Company pulling the plug on this giant EV plant in Marshall, Michigan. It's about 45 minutes south of the state capital in Lansing. This was a $3.5 billion project called the Blue Oval Battery Facility, right? It was backed by Governor Gretchen Whitmer. $3.5 billion, $1.7 billion of which to be gifted from the taxpayers of the state of Michigan, where I live. Ford says, yeah, we can't move forward with this anymore. Construction is going to stop this a couple of days ago because we don't believe it's profitable. So that happens. Big embarrassment for the governor here. And then who doesn't show up to greet Joe Biden at the airport, the president of the United States? UAW strike? Gretchen Whitmer, nowhere to be found. Remarkable. I guess she's not riding with Biden anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess all that really matters, Steve, when it all comes down is if any of this is moving the ball. Are you seeing a shift, especially in your audience, of people that maybe formerly were pro-union, pro-Democrat all the way, who are maybe rethinking that strategy for the next election?
Gina, let me tell you something. Here's what I'm hearing. And I'm hearing this a lot in Michigan. Michigan obviously went to Donald Trump by a narrow margin in 2016. We're told that Joe Biden won by 100 and some thousand votes in 2000. And, excuse me, that's my agent calling. 2020.
That's the UAW on the line for you, Steve.
But anyhow, so they tell us that Joe Biden won by a wider margin in 2020. But here's what I'm hearing. Back to Gina's question. It's a serious question, a serious answer. I know a number of Democrats. They don't like Donald Trump. All right, they don't. And they're not shy about telling you that. But they're so embarrassed of where we are with this president that they say they cannot vote for Joe Biden again. Some of them said that they will, in fact, if the election were today, would walk in the booth and vote for Donald Trump. These are Democrats that I've known for years. Not the fringe, radical, Antifa type Democrats, but just, run-of-the-mill Democrats. They've always voted Democrat, kind of always been union mentality. They're leaving Joe Biden, and that's reflected in the Washington Post, ABC News polls. It's reflected in polls from the Harris X that came out a couple of days ago. It's reflected everywhere, and it's reflected in people that I'm talking to, people that I actually know that have never voted for a Republican in their life, saying, wait a second, what we had with Donald Trump, even though I didn't like him, I don't like his mannerisms or his approach, I like his policies, and I like him as president far better than what we have right now. And yes, I'm seeing that, and I'm hearing that on the ground here, Gina, all the time.
Yeah.
Steve Gruber, the Walking Encyclopedia. Great to see you, sir. Appreciate it. Take that call from the UAW. When we come back, a scandal of epic proportions. Bob Menendez, he's a piece of work. What will it take for Democratic Senator Menendez to step down for the sake of his constituents? The latest ahead as American Sunrise continues.
30 years, I have withdrawn thousands of dollars in cash from my personal savings account, which I have kept for emergencies and because of the history of my family facing confiscation in Cuba. I firmly believe that when all the facts are presented, not only will I be exonerated, but I still will be the New Jersey's senior senator.
And this swamp segment starring swamp creature Bob Menendez, sponsored by Sea of Mud, seaofmud.com. Use promo code RAV1776 for your 15% off. And despite Senator Bob Menendez's defiant news conference on Monday, where he denied the cash and gold bars found in his apartment were bribes, the tide hasn't turned in his favor among his colleagues. Yesterday, at least 18 Senate Democrats also called for Menendez to resign, including his Garden State counterpart and longtime friend Cory Booker. Here's the headline. Booker joins growing number of Senate Democrats calling for Menendez to resign amid federal indictment. In a statement, Booker said it was a, quote, a mistake for Senator Menendez not to resign on Monday and that he should step down, quote, for the sake of the public's faith in the U.S. Senate, as if there were any in you, Mr. Booker. Anyway, this is notable because Booker testified on Menendez's behalf during his last federal bribery and corruption trial. That was back in 2017, you might remember, and that ended, in fact, in a mistrial. He was a charter witness who called Menendez honest and trustworthy. And now he joins Nancy Pelosi, Amy Klobuchar, Kirsten Gillibrand, and a dozen other Senate Democrats insisting it is time for Menendez to go. And we have more on this story coming up, but we're going to head to break because we're going to be right back with you in 2 minutes. Stay where you are. Okay, when I...
necessarily want to go to California, but I wouldn't mind being on a beach, especially since it's like 50 degrees here in the Denver area. We appreciate you sticking around for American Sunrise, everyone. I'm Terrance Bates. As hundreds of thousands of federal workers are preparing for the increasingly real possibility that they'll be furloughed at the end of this week, Credit rating service Moody's is warning that a government shutdown would actually have negative implications for the government's current AAA credit rating, which is at the highest level it's ever been. If there is a shutdown, it would actually mark the fourth in a decade. Tuesday night, House Republicans narrowly agreed to start debate on a package of bills to fund parts of the government. The Senate, on the other hand, passed a stopgap measure to keep government agencies funded through November 17th in order to buy more time for Congress to pass a long-term budget. Some House Republicans are willing to let the government shut down, though, in lieu of remaining on the current spending path. All right, let's turn this thing back over to David in Washington, D.C., a.k.a. The Swamp. David, a lot happening right now, particularly when it comes to this tragic story and the family that has actually been trying to work around the tragedy that they're having to deal with.
Well, that's absolutely right, Terrance, and it has to do with homeschooling. Take a look at this headline. It involves a German migrant family that's actually been in America for a very long time. The question is this, and it says it right there: is the Biden administration about to deport a German migrant family after 15 years fighting for asylum? So the family moved to the U.S. from Germany in 2008. Their application for asylum said they were fined by the German government roughly $9,000 after homeschooling their kids, according to court documents. So an immigration judge initially granted the family's application for asylum. The U.S. Department of Justice appealed the decision. The U.S. Board of Immigration Appeals revoked the family's asylum status, according to documents. The family now, with the help of the U.S. Homeschool Defense Association, appealed to the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals, and a three-judge panel unanimously ruled against the family. They have not, this is what they said, they have not shown that Germany's enforcement of its general school attendance law amounts to persecution against them, according to the judge. Let's get more on this with Tara Dahl, Real America's Voice contributor. Tara, what a tragic story. I mean, you know, good luck trying to homeschool your kids in Europe. They wanted to get out. They called it religious persecution, and now the Biden administration may be coming after them.
Yeah, it's an example, David, of just the hypocrisy from this administration when you compare it to the millions that are coming illegally into the United States at the southern border. And here's a family who has two kids who were born in the United States, two other children who are married to American citizens. They've been here 15 years, are contributing to society, working at a university, and have been here peaceful. And here you have the Biden administration who decides they want to deport this family instead of all of the illegal immigrants that are crossing at the southern border.
Yeah, you would think that they would have their you would think they would have their priorities straight. Actually, you probably would not think they have their priorities straight, because we've seen what this administration does. But, you know, if you add this up, I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that this is the Biden's modus operandi. I mean, they go, I mean, this is an evangelical family. They're a homeschooling family. We know that the DOJ has come has basically gone after pro-life Catholics at gunpoint, literally. So this shouldn't surprise us, and yet this continues to happen. It really is a tragedy what we're seeing here, and I know there's this petition out there as well. They're trying to get some help.
Yeah, there is a petition that you can sign if people want to support this family, to be able to call on the Biden administration to not deport them. And that's just also, this is just another example of the administration really undermining legal immigration instead of illegal immigration. I was talking to a friend of mine who has been trying to get green cards for very close family members of theirs, and they're saying that they are not able to get a green card unless you get the vaccination. So the Biden administration, still, it's that comparison between illegal immigration and legal immigration. You have to get a vaccine, COVID vaccine, to get a green card still in the United States. That's still mandated in the United States to get a green card.
I did not know that, actually. So that's interesting, because our son married someone from Brazil, and she's in the process of getting a green card. And so that's interesting. You've kind of thrown me for a loop there. But this is what the Biden administration does. They're kind of combining all of this, whether it be vaccine mandates or illegal immigration policies, and making you having to jump through hoops. as it relates to illegal immigration, kind of overall, just one last question about what the Biden administration should be doing, because there's so much they should be doing, and we hear so much about building a wall. But what about the employment verification system? They just let that. There's so much lax there as well.
Well, they just let 500,000. They gave protective status status to 500,000 Venezuelans and gave them work visas just last week. And so that's just an example, again, of how they undermine legal immigration versus illegal immigration. And then they're letting in millions with the CBP One app, trying to say that they're here legally as well. So it's just the hypocrisy of this administration, and they're targeting a homeschool family of all people that have been here for 15 years. So I hope the Biden administration does the right thing and allows this family to stay in the United States.
Yeah. Absolutely appalling. Tara Dahl, great to see you as always. Thank you so very
David.
much. Time for you bet. Time for the opening bell, sponsored by AMAC.
The Association of Mature American Citizens is the conservative voice for Americans 50 and older. AMAC is fighting for the values that you hold dear. Join today. Together, we can right the course of America.
David, that clapping's not for you, it's for the bell, as we anticipate the bell ringing here momentarily. There it is. You hear the bell, ladies and gentlemen. Futures were in the green, but as the markets officially are now open, unfortunately, the Dow, the S&P 500, the NASDAQ, all immediately in the red. That hopefully will change throughout the day. We, of course, will continue to monitor the markets. In the meantime, Target is set to close 9 stores in 4 states by late next month because of safety concerns. Here's the backstory. The affected stores are in New York City's East Harlem neighborhood, as well as 3 stores in San Francisco and the Bay Area. The retailer says they didn't invest heavily in strategies to prevent theft, yet still, stores were overrun and organized retail crime threatened the safety of workers and customers in those affected stores. Workers at the stores being closed will be given the opportunity to transfer to other Target locations. Target says that the theft-related losses this year will be $500 million more than last year, topping $1.2 billion. Vladimir Putin called the U.S. dollar's drop in dominance, quote, objective and irreversible during the recent BRICS summit in South Africa. This as Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa formally agreed to use local currencies instead of the U.S. dollar. As demand for the dollar weakens, the buying power of the dollar is also weakening, and that's why the Birch Gold Group is busier than ever these days. Investors and savers are looking to harness the power of physical gold that's held in tax-sheltered IRAs. Text the word America to the number 989898 for your free information kit on gold. With thousands of satisfied customers, an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau, and countless 5-star reviews, you can count on the Birch Gold Group to help you navigate transitioning an existing IRA or 401k into an IRA in gold. As the U.S. dollar continues to receive pressure from foreign countries, digital currency, and central banks, you may want to consider arming yourself with information on how to protect your savings. Again, you can do so by texting the word America to the number 989898 and claiming your free information kit on gold from the Birch Gold Group. We're going to take a quick break. Up next, 2024 is getting saucy. Find out what's got Joe Biden's crew of handlers in a sticky situation. We'll have that story when we return.
It's Southern at its finest. It's red, white, and blue. You gotta get out and try it. Red State Barbecue. Red State Barbecue.
There's a lot to slap some sauce on this morning, but this segment is sponsored by Red State Barbecue. RedStateBarbecue.com. Just use the promo code RAV10 for 10% off. They actually have a brand new apple bourbon sauce, or you can grab their classic flavors, Memphis Sweet, Texas Spicy. They also have North Carolina and South Carolina local barbecue sauce flavors, even an Alabama and Kentucky style barbecue sauce. Trust me, it's tasty. Part of this gut, Red State Barbecue, ladies and gentlemen. Red State Barbecue, once again.com. The promo code RAV10 for 10% off. Log on and get the hookup. In this morning's 2024 is Getting Saucy segment, President Biden had a conflict of interest when he arrived at the UAW strike yesterday. His attempt to act like a union man is undermined by his climate agenda's push for a forced transfer to electric vehicles in 2035. But the White House wasn't concerned with that as Mr. Biden joined the picket line. Instead, the 80-year-old's handlers were more concerned with making sure that he didn't fall. Here's the headline. White House taking urgent measures to prevent Biden from falling as Democrats remain terrified of bad slip. Democrats are reportedly, quote, terrified of 80-year-old Joe Biden's next bad fall. Others are even more frustrated with Biden's aides for allowing him to wander away from the podium aimlessly after his speeches. The growing concern among Americans over the president's age is getting under his administration's skin as well. Rather than removing him from the spotlight, though, they're insisting that the president wear tennis shoes in order to avoid slipping. They're also ensuring that he takes shorter stairs to board Air Force One and attend physical therapy sessions to improve his balance. All of those things happening to your president. Dr. Gina, David, this is really kind of weird. I mean, the fact that you've got a man who has the football, has access to the football, and the fact that they're putting tennis shoes on him and making sure that he can walk properly and putting him through therapy, that raises concerns, Dr. G. I think that's a nice way to put it.
Yeah, a nice way to put it for sure. Thank you so much, Terrance, for that. And it's not just balance the Dems are concerned about. Take a look at this headline. 5 polls show that Joe Biden's chances of re-election are in jeopardy, to be sure. The polls released in recent days have raised questions about the chances of Biden winning a second term. The various surveys paint the picture of an incumbent president unable to get his own party to back his own agenda, from the economic, how to handle inflation, illegal immigration, and appealing to younger voters. So there are a lot of things they question. Here are the key facts. Biden's disapproval rating has hit an all-time high at 56%. I guess he's winning on that note. One poll puts Trump 10 points ahead of Biden. Approval, or rather disapproval, of his handling of the economy is at a 64% high. A large number of Democrats would vote for RFK Jr. as a third-party candidate. That's another thing. Biden's support is plummeting also with black voters. The Democrat base think the party has veered just simply too far to the left. Back with us now to discuss is Kaylin Dorr. Kaylin, these polls, they're very disturbing if you're a Democrat. But the thing is, I think that most people ask when they talk about this topic, Kaylin, is do the polls matter if we don't have election integrity? It really all comes down to that. To your knowledge as a Republican strategist, Kaylin, what is being done, what has been accomplished that will keep the Democrats from being able to steal the next election? Because you can have all the polls and all the popularity and all the money and all the everything, but it really doesn't matter if they steal the next one, right?
Well, you absolutely are correct, and I think what we have to take a look at is whether or not Trump or the Republican nominee is actually polling outside the margin of fraud, right? And we mentioned that Joe Biden has got a lot of work to do with younger voters, with African American and minority voters, and what you're going to see them do over the coming months, to the next year, is try to weaponize, big tech, social media, all of the assets at their disposal that worked so well for them the last time, time to go out there and corner the market on these things. We've seen Axios reported earlier this year that the Biden administration was actually setting up a TikTok war room in the White House, which is just a disgrace because, as you know, TikTok is wholly CCP owned. It's a disaster and it's an invasion on our own property. But they're going way out of their way to utilize these tools and weaponize them against the public. And so we're never, ever going to be doing enough work to stop this from happening.
Yeah, and I think it's a little bit nerve-wracking to those. Do we have Terrance? Because I see Terrance there. I just want to bring him in if he...
Yeah.
Okay,
absolutely.
good.
Hey, Dr. Gina, I'm chomping at the bit for this one. Kaylin, good to see you, my friend. So I'm curious, we're talking a lot about shoring up our elections, and isn't some of that incumbent also on state Republicans? There are a number of Republican-led states right now, and these lawmakers need to be kind of jumping into this fight and making sure that elections, at very least in their states, are more secure and that people can have faith in them, no?
No, you're 1,000% correct. And the issue is, nothing that ever happens on the federal level that happens in Washington, D.C. has an instant, impact on what everyday Americans are seeing or feeling in their communities. And so it is wholly incumbent upon these state representatives to get out there. But also, we're talking to real Americans' voices, right? You've got to get out there and call your representatives, let them know, show up at town halls, show up at the doorsteps, let them know that you want to make sure this election is, secure. Because at the end of the day, the left is never going to stop trying to take this from us.
I'm really glad you brought that up, Kaylin, because in our chat today, they are posting back and forth the numbers where you can call and do exactly what you're saying. They were ahead of it. They knew before you even announced it that that's what they needed to be doing. And in fact, they started calling right at 9 o'clock this morning. But I also know, and I don't want to be a discouragement, that there are other ways to make noise. Because I remember when my husband served in the Senate in Missouri, the phone calls were essentially a tally. So making a good argument like we thought was going to help, it was a little shocking to me as a voter and as somebody who had participated in activism. It was a little shocking to me that my call or my letter that I thought was so well written or so well stated, right? I did my best with this stuff, was really a tally mark that representative might or might not even ever see. Now, I'm not saying it's not important to call. I think it totally is. But what else can we do from a strategic perspective, right, to have impact on these kinds of issues with our legislative bodies?
Well, I think ultimately you've got to take a step back even further and look at what the left is trying to do with these policies. And ultimately, the biggest part, the second biggest pillar of their strategy is to make us feel alone, right? They win when you feel like you're the only one who thinks or feels or speaks the way that you do. And so the best thing that anyone can do, and I know that people are doing this, in the Getter chat today, is to organize amongst yourselves, create your own communities, because you're not alone, and that alone will drive turnout when we come to these elections going forward. That is the most important thing you can do because together we're strong. But if they're able to divide us, or if they're able to, again, like the left, they want you to hate your country and hate you for loving your country, and that's not something that we should stand by and let them, just impregnate our country with. It's just so unacceptable. It's crazy.
Kaylin, as I'm listening to you, this bright idea popped into my mind. Oh, wow. People, be grassroots activists, if you will. Be a poll watcher in your own neighborhood. Be a poll judge in your own neighborhood. That's a great way to police the police, to police those that you don't trust, no? And I guess that's a rhetorical question. I'm sorry I'm putting words in your mouth, but that's what popped into my mind.
No, I think you're 100% correct. Make sure you're going out there, you're sharing with your community. If you get one person to the polls, or if you get one person that you're Facebook friends with, who I don't use Facebook, I use it to check people's birthdays and laugh about who's getting married to who. But
September
make sure
4th, I'll save you that time. September 4th is mine, so you don't have to worry about it. Go ahead, Kaylin.
This is good to know. I'll make sure we get you some a nice cheese basket in the mail. But no, honestly, like if you get one person to the polls, you're doing a great job in getting the vote out. The Dems, they tend to swing big. and they're not paying attention to every little voter. They're not paying attention to every person on their contact list. Drive someone to the polls if you've got to, but make sure you're getting out there and being active. I once was a field organizer for the GOP many, many moons ago, and I think those are the most important jobs in the political industry at whole. And again, just do everything you can to help, because our nation is at stake. That we're in the middle of a fight for the soul of our country, and if we don't stop it now, who's going to?
Yeah, no doubt. And Kaylin, as we're watching and as I'm listening to this show and just kind of taking parts of it in, I'm realizing that on this whole father-son issue that was discussed earlier on the program today, is Joe Biden a good father? Are they setting a right example, right, for fathers across the nation? Because, the Democrats want to portray Joe Biden as this father who just loves his son, and nobody can dispute that a father is supposed to love their son, and almost nobody can dispute that if you were resident of the White House, like Joe Biden is, you would pardon your own son. That's all true. But what about the fact that he made his son, Kaylin, the point man for a crime cartel? Because that's really what happened. Does the father who truly loves his son do that?
No, and we're looking at, Joe Biden's not the poster child for anything other than, he could replace characters on the movie poster for Weekend at Bernie's, but also he is the poster child for the erosion of society in our country. Culturally, we live in a society in which attention is the most important currency that you could possibly have. And that's why we see things, we see young children taking to TikTok to transition. We see, politicians feel like they can get away with anything they want. We saw, you covered the Menendez stuff earlier this morning. Right. That guy, he's just claiming he was abiding by the new Senate dress code, and he expects you to believe them. They think so little of people like you and I, Dr. Gina, that they've been getting away with it in public. In broad daylight, doing this, eroding our country, and there's just nothing, we have to stop this now, because if we don't, again, like I said, I don't know that the future generations are equipped to handle it.
Kaylin, 30 seconds here. As we prepare for tonight's GOP debate for second place, if you will, is this an important thing? Like, does this broaden the marketplace of ideas, or is it more beneficial to the party as a whole if all of these other candidates drop out, just put their weight behind President Trump, and let's move forward to 2024?
Yeah, that's a good question, Terrance. I'm of two minds on this, right? I think what made the Trump administration especially impactful was that we had, quote unquote, political celebrities in cabinet positions, and we brought really unprecedented attention to issues that I don't think anyone has ever seen before. I couldn't name, Bill Clinton's HUD director, for example, but I know Dr. Ben Carson, right? Right. So if these guys are going out there with the intention of doing that and serving their country in a different capacity, I think this is a great thing. Otherwise, if I'm an investor or if I'm a donor to any of these candidates, I'm making a really tough decision tonight, and I hope that the field thins itself out, because we're spending a lot of time attacking each other and attacking President Trump, and Joe Biden's still there. He's still occupying the White House, and he's still stumbling and bumbling. He's like a Roomba in his own house after every press conference. It's a disaster.
Absolutely.
Kaylin Dorr, dropping the knowledge and giving us something to think about. Always a pleasure, my friend. Thanks so much for being here with us. We're back in 2 minutes when American Sunrise continues.
Freedom-loving patriots are falling in love with America's barbecue sauce, Red State Barbecue. Red State's 8 different sauces are perfect for whatever sparks your barbecue palate. Visit redstatebbq.com. That's redstatebbq.com and use promo code RAV10 for 10% off.
Red State Barbecue.
Let's spill some tea.
This, of course, is sponsored by Artillery Tea Company. ArtilleryTeaCo.com. Use promo code RAV for your 10% off. Artillery Tea is all natural. It's whole leaf. The tea bags are chemical free, and each bag can be used 2 times. Little silky things. Artillery Tea Company is family and veteran owned and operated, and a portion of your purchase goes to help veteran and first responder charities. So go right now to ArtilleryTeaCo.com. Promo code RAV. That'll give you your 10% off, and you can find out what we're all talking about. It's time now to spill some tea. In fact, in today's Cup, Jeff Bezos and his crew at Amazon.com. We're going to be talking about them. The Federal Trade Commission and 17 state attorneys general have sued Amazon, and the landmark lawsuit could break up Amazon's $1.3 trillion empire. Here's the headline. FTC and 17 states sue Amazon on antitrust charges. The lawsuit alleges that the e-commerce giant uses its position in the marketplace to inflate prices on other platforms, to overcharge sellers, and to stifle competition, and basically to maintain what we call a monopoly. This is the culmination of several years of pressure on federal enforcers to deal with what some competitors, sellers, and lawmakers have seen as anti-competition practices. Rumors of the case against Amazon started flying during the Trump administration. If the FTC wins, it could fundamentally alter the way Amazon's business operates, leading to higher prices, slower deliveries, and harm to countless businesses. Oh, my goodness. So this plot thickens. Very interesting, because many of us, unfortunately, for better or for worse, no matter how guilty we feel about it, we're still ordering from Amazon, and makes things a little bit tough if they're going to slow things down and if you're not going to be able to get your deliveries on time. And so, Terrance, what are your thoughts about that?
Well, you know, the smart aleck in me says, since this is an alleged monopoly, hopefully Amazon will get more than the thimble and just a prick on the finger or a slap on the wrist. If, in fact, this is all true, it will be much more. Get it? Monopoly, the piece, the thimble, the car. Yeah,
oh, that's
okay.
good. Oh,
I'm
that's
done.
Just
Apparently that didn't go over well.
Wow. Wow. That was deep for so early in the morning, Terrance.
I'm a little bit conflicted about this.
Yeah.
You know, I don't trust the government. This just in. So the FTC, you know.
They're here to save the day, though, David.
I know. I don't trust the FTC. And also, if you look at all these 17 attorney generals, many of them are for Democrat-led states. Having said that, I don't trust Amazon either, obviously. And Bezos is obviously off the rails and not obviously into the whole monopoly situation or the thimbles or all that stuff. So this is tough. I mean, my wife sells this book on Amazon that she wrote, and they have ways of basically pushing her book down. It's on biblical archaeology. So, you know, they have mechanisms in place to kind of do what they need to do to basically pump sales or not pump sales. So it's just, I don't know. I'm just skeptical of it all. Yeah. I'll be honest with you. I'm just skeptical of it all.
Amazon removed my book right in the critical week for bestseller status. They removed it completely for their own. Yeah, they do it. But do not collect Go. Do not collect $100 because Sunny Side Up is coming up next. Stick around. So more American Sunrise right after this.
That was good. That was good.
Nice, Dr. G.
Tired of the same old mass-produced, globalist-supporting tea companies? Artillery Tea Company is the Patriot source of natural premium tea. Visit artilleryteaco.com and use promo code RAV for 10% off.
edition of Sunny Side Up is for our pro football fans out there and anyone with fond memories of their high school sport games. A 1 in a million catch game during a Waco, Texas, catch came. I'll get this, guys. We're almost at the end of the show, and it's a good thing because I can't talk anymore, apparently. Anyway, this catch came during a Waco, Texas high school football game when 4 friends were heading downtown in an SUV and passed the field at the perfect moment. Check out this play.
Wow.
You must have caught it.
I honestly feel like that could have happened in the small town where I grew up. I grew up in a very small town. I went to Helias High School, a little Catholic high school in a small town and nestled in the Ozark Mountains. And that moment could have had, like, our football field kind of looked like that. David and Terrance, any favorite memories from a high school sports game?
Well, all of my moments
Terrance,
were favorite because I was all world. I was all world in any sport that I played. You know, I'm a natural born athlete. There's a story to the whole natural born athlete thing that I will share with you guys later, but I was all world in my mind. You know, I should probably be a professional athlete in my mind.
Yes, yeah. That's what I like to tell my kids. I said, I would have been in the NBA if I were 6'7" and I could shoot and I could jump. But sadly, I can't. No, my only high school memory, honestly, and this is not the best memory in the world, is when I was on my high school basketball team. I was averaging, thank you very much, about 10 points a game. The coach took me out. I wasn't happy. And I gave him a few choice words when I was 17 years old. And, well, let's just say I might not have played the next 3 or 4 games. Aww. And I'll leave it at that.
Aww.
I'm just saying.
I won a hoop shoot contest when I was in about 7th grade, and so I thought I was going to be a basketball player at 5'2". But at least there was room for me on the cheerleading squad because otherwise I would have been completely out of luck. All right, we have some great guests coming up on American Sunrise. Laura Trump will be in studio with us this week, along with Bob Barr, Craig Shirley, Father Frank Pavone, one of MAGA's favorites, Larry Elder, Liz Harrington, and make sure you catch our own amazing Miranda Conda today on Special Report at 4 p.m. We have War Room with Steve Bannon coming up next, and here comes the salutes, here comes those hands with David and Terrance. I know you all go boldly now and live the truth for the rest of the day. We'll see you in the morning.
Get it, David.